Today we will see how in our application how can we do authentication using third party services like Google, GitHub and all, right? Today we will look how we can do it with Google. So basically how the whole flow works is like so we create a new project in Google console and get the client ID from there, credential from there, right? So that client ID we use in our front end. So I will have two application. One is in React front end and another one is in back end using Node.js. So we got the client ID from the Google console where we created the project. And now how the flow works is like, we basically have a Google Auth provider, which is this login button we get, right? I will basically explain with the code as well, but before that, I will give a whole overview, like how the whole process works, right? So we say Google, hey man, can you please, basically we route to Google console again and with the client ID and say, hey man, can you please give me access code for this client ID? Google say, okay, Google sees the client ID, redirect URL and all those things, and then give the access code. Access code is basically the credential, right? Once front end have an access code for this client ID, it makes an API call to our Node.js backend saying that maybe the route can be slash API slash Google slash auth, right? And say, hey, this is the Google code. Now, now Node.js will say, this is the Google code. Hey, Google, now can you please give me the access code, like access token? um, I am providing you access code. Can you please give me access token? Basically, like user details, right? So Google will see the token and then provide the access. Uh, Google will see the access code and provide the access token for that, right? And then access token is will have all the details like what is the name of the user, what is the image of that user, and all those details, right? And then once the Node.js backend will have those details, it will either send this detail to front end so that front end can render that data on their screen that, hey, the authentication is successful, this is the image, and this is the name of the user. Now you please go ahead and do other stuff, right? One thing is that other, like from Node.js we can use JWT token or anything like session storage or something like that to store, to send the JWT token instead of basically sending the whole uh, access token which Google provided, right? uh, and that token basically we can store in front end local storage or somewhere so that we can send that in every request. So this is how the whole flow works. Let me show you with a code example so that things are pretty clear to you. Before that, let's see the demo. This is the page. Client is running on 3001 port, server is running on 3000 port. So when I click on sign in with Google, it gives like who are the clients, like this is the one client. When I click on continue, it basically authenticated. Google provide the details like this is the image, this is the name, and all other details. Like when I click on logout, it basically logs out, destroy the token from the local storage, and redirect to the home, like the base page. Let's go to the code. Starting with the React project, it start with index file where we provide the Google Auth provider with the client ID what we generated from the Google console project, right? Right. So this is the main parent provider of the application. Now we go to the app. In the app, you see, so basically once if the data is not there, user data is nothing, but once the user is authenticated, I'm setting the data in user data. If it is not there, uh, so I am redirecting to base page where base page has this Google login button, right? It's a Google login component, which you will see here, right? This one, this, right? This is a Google login component. Okay. So, yeah. So once we get that component and user click on sign in with Google, basically like it redirects to accounts.google.com, do the OAuth. Then when we click on this one of the client, so what it does, like it gives us the credential. Credential basically have access code, right? So once the login is successful, I have written a function where we get the credential response, and I have written a function which calls a Google, which calls our Node.js endpoint slash API slash auth slash Google. Basically, here we will ask Node.js to give us the Google access token after we provide that provide backend with the code, right? So here I'm in payload, I'm sending the code what I got, right? And making a request to our Node.js backend slash API slash auth slash Google, right? So let's go to the Node.js backend and see what this route is doing. Now I am in my Node.js project. If you see, it's a basic Node.js project which uses Express server. It's a basic one. So I hope that you know a little bit about it, so that I will skip the basic information about like going line by line, right? So let's go to the route, which is this one, right? I made a post route where slash API slash out slash Google was the requested URL, and here what I'm getting the code from body, right? And now here I am asking Google. This is a Google client, right? Here I'm asking Google, hey, can you please verify this token and give me the ticket. Ticket is nothing but access token for that token, right? For this access code, please give me access token, right? So once we get the ticket, we basically try to get the payload using that ticket. Payload is nothing but all the details related to that ticket, related to that user, like the profile photo, username, and all those details, right? And this payload we basically send to the client. But here what I'm doing, I'm basically creating a user like payload dot id and then email name picture, and I'm using JSON web token instead of directly sending the in user information to client. I'm using JSON web token. So and here I have added this payload whatever we got from the Google, and then the secret. So you should be knowing a little bit about JSON web token, how it works, right? Basically it does not use this database. Everything happens on the code itself, like we sign the token and then with our secret, and then once we send this token, always in the request we verify if the token is correct or not. So yeah, so here we are signing the token and getting the JWT token. I should be writing basically JWT token, right, to make it a little more clear. And here I am sending JWT token, right? And the expires in 24 hour I have given, and then this is what I'm sending to the client. Status success, user will create, basically have data related to email, name, picture, right? And the token, what we got, access token, right? Now I'm in React project. Here, when I requested this, I got the detail about the user, like token and user data. I am setting that, and I also am setting that in local storage. If you see, right, user I'm setting, and then token I'm setting, right? So far so good. Like we got the token JWT token from the backend and also the user information. I've set that in local storage, right? Once I have the user data, basically I can now what I am doing, I am redirecting. So if you see the code, right, so if user data is present, redirect to slash home, right? And then slash home, if you see slash home, yeah. So if you see slash home component is basically what I'm doing, I'm rendering whatever user data was there, right? So let me go. So I clicked on that sign in button, right? It gave me this page, Google page. When I click on it, whole thing happened what I explained, right? Like access code, access token, everything, and then the access DWT token stored on our local storage, and then it redirected to slash home where I am basically rendering the user data, right? The user data had the name of the user, email ID, and the profile photo, right? And if I show you in local storage, this token which I saved, right? This token is also there, token JWT token, and then the user detail. This user detail is nothing but what this Yogen Saxena name, right? If you see here, this is the profile photo which I'm rendering over here, right? Um, okay. So now we have uh, the JWT token. Now let's say user want to make subsequent request to fetch more detail or want to do something else, right? So every protected route or every protected API has to go with that, authentication process in it, right? So for every protected route, every protected API, user will always send this token along in the request, in the header or in the payload or whatever they want. and then the Node.js will verify that hey, the token is correct or not, right? So here, let's say I have added one button which fetches extra information. Extra information is just a dummy data I'm sending from the backend after verifying the token is correct or not, right? So if it is correct, it basically gives me the detail and I render that on page. Let me show you that code as well. So when user click on fetch extra information, I am basically triggering this where is that fetch extra info, right? So I'm checking if the token is present. Not present, then we say hey, no token is available. If it is present, I am making a call to the backend, which is like slash get slash extra info, and then in header I'm sending authorization bearer and then token. So bearer basically here means that hey, whoever is the bearer of this token have access to this route, have access to this API. Bearer basically means that only, right? So I'm making a call with a token which was there in the local storage, right? And then making a call to this endpoint in Node.js slash get slash extra information. Now coming to the Node.js project, if you see, this is the route which we are hitting. It's a get method, and I've added a middleware as well, which basically verifies the token. If it is verified, then only the request will go to the next function, right? So if you go here, you will see, right? So I am retrieving the authorization header, authorization key from the header, right? And since it was bearer space token, I am retrieving the token, like splitting it with the space and getting it at index one where the token was. And then this is a JWT function. Basically, it verifies the token JWT.verify, where we pass the token, what we got from the front end, what was the secret, and then if the token was not valid, we send with an error. If it was valid, we make a call to the next function, right? Next is basically it goes to this function here, right? And here what I'm doing, I'm just basically hard coding age, address, gender, and sending to front end, right? Now front end will basically, client will basically, once the token was valid, which was authenticated by our Node.js server, if the response was okay, everything, I am setting that data in set extra information, and then again it's a basic React application. I'm then rendering that application data into this home route, right? The idea is to show you the logic and functionality of the core part, not to show you like how things are getting rendered on React. The basic assumption I have is that you know a little bit about React, you know a little bit about Node.js, and you know a little bit about GWT, right? The idea is to teach you how the OAuth, like third party service provider, basically gives us a way to, log in, like log in via Google, log in via Facebook, log in via GitHub, right? So this is how the flow works. And when I click on log out, right, it logs out. Logs out basically means what? It basically removes the token from uh, from local storage or wherever I stored, right? Let me show that. If I log in, right, it created the token here in local storage, right? And if I log out, it basically destroys the token, right? Let me show you the logout code as well. Handle logout is doing nothing but removing, like setting the states to null and then also removing it from the local storage, right? This was a very simple explanation about how the OAuth flow works. So let me explain again as a summary. Um, so basically we go to the Google console with a client ID and say, hey, can you please give me access code for this client ID? Google say, okay, this is the access code. Please use it to retrieve the access token and the user information. Now the front end has an access code. It will go to our Node.js backend and say, hey man, can I get an access uh, token? I will give you access code for this. Please give me the access token or user detail for this code. So Google provide the user detail about that uh, access code what we have given, and then what we did, we used JSON Web Token to basically create JWT token out of that access token what we got from the Google, and then we send that JWT token along with the user data to frontend. Now the frontend has JWT token and user information. It basically store that information either in session storage, either in local storage, wherever client want to do, right? Now a user, the client has JWT token and user information. It basically renders that user information data on UI, like this is the profile photo, this is the name of the user and all those things. And when user try to fetch more detail, once it is authenticated, we try to authenticate every route, every API again and again, because that is what makes our system secure, right? So let's say again we try to fetch more detail, right? So in Node.js we have added a middleware saying that, hey, we want to verify the token what user is sending. So again, using jwt.verify, we verify the token what we get from the front end, and if it is valid, everything goes well, we send a like 200 response to the client, and that is how we render things on UI. I hope things are clear, and I was able to explain things in a very smooth manner. Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone.